coming from every angle with the will to deceive. Fear not, you found the place for truth. The voice of a generation that still has the will to believe in the greatest country in the history of the world. This is the Charlie Kirk Show. Buckle up. Here we go.
Welcome, everybody. Live from Austin, Texas. Charlie Kirk here. Honored to be with you. As always, you can email me freedom@charliekirk.com and subscribe to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast. After our program, we'll be heading to the University of Texas, Austin to play offense. Joining us right now is Steve Bannon, who had a fabulous description, a monologue about what's happening economically, globally. Steve, welcome to the program. Can you walk our audience through kind of the Keynesian economic drunkenness that the Western world has been engaging in? And what is this new term they're using, fiscal domination, and how does it apply to the average working American? Steve, welcome to the show, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, Charlie, thanks. I know you're going on offense as the team over at Turning Point always is. I just hope you've got good security today, because the University of Texas, the great state of Texas, I got to tell you, the University of Texas is the railhead of a lot of progressive thought. So that's going to be a wild one. I don't know if you're going to live stream it, but I will tell you, Charlie Kirk in Texas taking questions, Q&A from the audience could be pretty exciting. So I'm going to tune into that one, sir.
Thank you. It's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome.
Hey, October's offense. Look, Lisa Abramowitz actually said it. We monitor, all the global news networks, and particularly the financial news networks. I think for people under 35 years old, you have to understand that we are heading into a time that is going to set the framework for your personal life, whatever your achievements are, whatever you want to accomplish. And that framework is really beyond your power to control now. That's where you got to get involved, I think, in places like Turning Point and in politics to try to get more control of your life. Fiscal domination, this is about what's happening in the UK right now, and it's very important in your life. The UK, they came up with some tax cuts and some other policies from the government that obviously could not be paid for given their vast overspending. The bond market there started to collapse. The Bank of England had to step in, and the reason was the pension funds. The pension funds were about to go out of business, and that would have really caused almost a revolution in the streets in the UK. The Bank of England had to step in. And what you're seeing is that this discussion's gone on is that this concept called fiscal domination is where the politicians, the uniparties in Washington, D.C., in London, in Western Europe, have really been on this Keynesian process of vast overspending, and not in capital equipment that's productive, but just kind of paying operating expense year after year after year with these massive deficits. And the central banks, that's called fiscal domination. The central banks have kind of gone along with it, and they financed it. They've just printed money, whether that's pounds or whether it's U.S. dollars. That game is rapidly coming to an end, and nobody's really reporting this right now. Jamie Dimon, the chairman of J.P. Morgan, said the other day, we are heading to a fiscal crisis. We're heading to a credit crisis, where you're not going to be able to pay for these deficits, and you're going to have sovereign debt. And normally when you have sovereign debt crises, Charlie, it's Greece or Italy or some third world country. You're going to have sovereign debt crisis in the Western world, and particularly I think in the United Kingdom, in the United States. Right now, Drudge has got up on its left-hand side a column, in its left column, about halfway down, a story from MarketWatch, the $31 trillion face amount of debt we have in the United States. We're having a tough time selling those bonds, those treasuries, as it rolls over. There's no real buyers. People don't want this anymore. They're going to charge such high interest rates that come next calendar year for the U.S. budget, that the interest payment is going to be $500 billion, $600 billion, $800 billion, maybe $1 trillion in a couple of years. So we are in, but hurtling towards a deeper financial crisis, and we're getting pretty close to the abyss. What this means is that your life, you working for a company, trying to start a business, trying to raise capital, trying to get a great job that can pay for help with your wife and your family, is all going to be taken away from you. And this is because the profligate spending of a political class that hasn't had the discipline put on it by a central bank to say, no, you can't do it. So all I can tell people is that we've got tough times ahead. The last comment I want to make, since really 1800, since the Battle of Trafalgar and really a few years later, Waterloo, the Anglo-American system has been in place. Although we split off as a revolution, we were always inextricably linked as both capital markets and kind of an economic model. since we defeated the French, since the British defeated the French, that for 222 years, the Anglo-American model, the administrative state globally as they expanded an empire, and their capital markets, English common law, all of it was what really kind of the world's structure was based upon that. And what you're seeing now, and this is why the OPEC plus situation happened the other day, the southern, where the resources are, the vast amount of resources in the what they call the global south, is revolting against right now the economic chaos that's in the West. And they're saying, hey, we have the resources. We don't know if we want to keep selling it to you for the prices you determine either in pounds or dollars. And we're going to have a big think about that. That's why the 3 million barrel a day cut is so big. And this shows you what's called the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. The BRICS are what we call the global south. When you add Iran and you add these other countries, are pushing back. I believe this is going to be the beginning of what I call the dark valley, like in the 1930s. You're going to have nothing but economic and financial chaos going forward. And this is going to bring about dramatic political change. Charlie, as you talk about every day, populism and economic nationalism, it's going to come to the forefront now as really those types of policies we have to have in order to get our house in order.
So 2 minutes before break here, Steve, here's what is confusing to me. I agree with all of that. But this is very risky for the Davos crowd on the World Economic Forum. It's not risky in the sense of we know that they have become fabulously wealthy and more powerful and closer to the kind of transhumanist agenda, open borders, because of all of these, kind of the fiscal domination, Keynesian economic policies. But it's risky because it certainly does open the door for a populist response. Have they factored that in? Have they factored in that there might be moves and counter moves that they might not be able to control? Steve, can you help game this out for me? About 2 minutes remaining.
Yeah, I think it's the key point. Right now, it's getting beyond. As Steve Cortez said so eloquently on the show, the Bank of England got bitch slapped by capital Marxists in trying to intervene. The Davos crowd, which is really the central banker in these governments that have had this fiscal domination, are losing control because they can't just have the game of printing money. And I think the most thing they're worried about is a populist revolt. That's why they went after Giorgia Meloni so strongly in Italy. That's where they're coming after MAGA. That's why you're a target. You'll see today at University of Texas. They now understand that the reaction to this is going to be a populist nationalist movement in England, in France, in the Swedish Democrats, Alternative for Deutschland, and you see Giorgia Meloni in Italy, and the MAGA movement with President Trump here in the United States. That's why the political fights are only going to get more intense, but now you're going to do it within a framework of a financial and economic crisis.
Yeah, it's a huge risk for them, though. They spent this money, they leveraged up the entire Western world, and they've taken everything away from people, including their children. They've put forward these secular values and imposed them, and they act as if there's not going to be a reaction. This is why they have to go to leg irons and handcuffs. They no longer can engage in debate or dialogue. But in some ways, the global elites have laid the foundation, the preconditions for a populist and nationalist response. Steve Bannon is here. I encourage all of you to check out Steve's monologue today with Steve Cortez, about 10 minutes, all about economics and the global financial system. And we're going through that again here on this program. So Steve, stay right there. Everybody, email us your thoughts, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe